Okay, this is how to take a look at homework 1.5, number 5. This one wants you to find a new graph of a function starting with this square root parent function. It wants you to first shift up 7 units, then reflect about the x-axis, and then reflect about the y-axis. So the first thing that we're going to do is start with our parent function, y equals square root of x. Now, we want to ask ourselves, how do I make a shift up by 7 units? And feel free to reference the table if you're not sure, but a shift up by 7 units should be adding 7 to the entire function. So what that looks like in practice, I'm going to call this y1, just because this is going to be the new function after I've done this one time. So this is my first new function. Boom. This should lift up my entire function up by 7 units. And one way that you can check to make sure that it's doing what you want it to do is by hopping over to Desmos. So I'm going to say y equals square root x, and this right here is our parent function. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the extra grid lines for right now. This is what our parent function looks like. Now let's see what happens if I take this and add 7 to it. Sure enough, it looks like my entire picture just got scooped up and pushed up 7 units. So this is exactly what I wanted to see. This originally came from the table. This is how you do a vertical shift. You just add a number to the end, and we can see visually that it does. Okay, so that confirms what we were doing here. Next up, I need to reflect about the x-axis. So real quick, I'm going to pop over to Tezos one more time. Flipping over the x-axis, if you can see my cursor here, I'm doing a kind of vertical movement. I want to take this blue picture over here, flip it over y equals 0, and have it end up down here someplace. So in order to do that, what I need to do is put my negative somewhere. But where do I put it? Do I put it in front of everything over here, or do I put it next to the X? Well, I could experiment and find out, but let's try to think this through. So if I'm flipping from above here down to here, that is a kind of vertical flip, right? Like a flip phone. So in my head, I think of this as a kind of vertical transformation. And vertical transformations, you usually apply them, not usually, you always apply them to the whole function. So what I want to do is I want to take my y1, so I'm going to now make something called y2. I'm going to take the previous guy, this thing over here, and multiply the whole entire thing by a negative, and in theory, that should be a flip over the x-axis. Sure enough, it did exactly that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the original one. But you can see from the blue one to the purple one, that negative in front of everything did the flip that I wanted it to do. Okay, so my next one, I'm going to say a negative in front of the whole function flips the picture over the x-axis. Okay, so then my y2 ended up looking like this. Now notice that without the parentheses, this would be wrong. If I just put a negative in front like that, that would be incorrect because that only multiplies the square root by a negative. The entire thing needs to be multiplied by a negative in order for it to do that flip. Okay, and now finally, I have another reflection, a reflection about the y-axis. If you think about a flip over the y-axis, that's kind of a left to right flip, like the page of a book. So in my mind, I think of a flip over the y-axis as kind of a horizontal transformation. So all of the horizontal transformations, they all happen right next to the x. So my next one, I should put the minus right in front of the x. So let me go ahead and change the subscript to 3, and we'll get ourselves a more interesting color than black. Yeah, why not? We'll do orange. I like that. So I need to put a negative, boom, right there. And perfectly, we can see that this purple, when flipped over the y-axis, lines up with the orange. I'll turn off the other one because it's not needed for right now. So in the end, this is my final result when all of the transformations are applied in order. And let's categorize that over here. A negative in front of just the x causes the picture to flip over the y-axis. So our final one looks like negative, parentheses, negative x plus 7, all in parentheses. This is what our answer looks like. All right, this is how to apply shifts to a function's equation in order to get a new function.